The journey to Yark Island started with a feeling. It was a pull, a quiet call from a place I knew mostly through stories. My father spoke of it often. He would sit in our small living room in Monrovia, the city's noise a distant hum, and his words would paint a picture of an island where the river met the sea, where the air was thick with the smell of salt and mangoes. I had decided to go with him this time. I needed to see this place for myself, to feel the earth of Yark Island under my own feet, and understand the part of me that was born from its soil. The city felt heavy, but the thought of the island was a breath of fresh air. We left Monrovia early in the morning. The city was still waking up, a slow and reluctant stretch. The car moved through the streets, past the familiar sights of bustling markets and women carrying baskets on their heads. The further we drove, the more the concrete buildings gave way to lush greenery. Palm trees lined the road, their leaves swaying like they were waving us forward. I watched the world change outside my window. The journey was not just a physical movement from one place to another. It felt like I was traveling back in time, moving closer to the roots of my family, closer to a part of my own story that I had not yet lived. The final part of the journey was by boat. A small wooden canoe waited for us at the riverbank. The water was wide and calm, reflecting the deep blue of the sky above. As we moved away from the shore, the sounds of the mainland faded. They were replaced by the gentle splash of the paddle cutting through the water. The air grew cooler. Yark Island appeared in the distance, a long strip of green against the horizon. It looked exactly as my father had described it. It was a place untouched by the rush of the world, a sanctuary held by the river. I felt a sense of peace settle over me, a quiet anticipation for what was to come. As we stepped onto the island, the sand was soft and warm beneath my shoes. The welcome was immediate and heartfelt. Aunts, uncles, and cousins emerged from the small houses nestled among the trees. Their faces were bright with smiles. Their arms were open for hugs. They greeted my father with loud, joyful cries. They called his name Dauda and clapped his back. For me, they had curious and kind eyes. They saw my father in my face. In that moment, I was not just a visitor from the city, I was a son of Yark Island, returning to a home I was only just beginning to know. The feeling was overwhelming, a deep sense of belonging. My father was different on Yark Island. In Monrovia, he was a quiet man, his shoulders often heavy with the worries of city life. But here, he seemed lighter. He walked with a familiar ease, his steps sure on the winding paths. He spoke more, his voice carrying the lilting tones of his native tongue. He laughed a deep, rumbling laugh that I had not heard in a long time. It was beautiful to see. He pointed out trees his grandfather had planted. He showed me the spot by the river where he learned to swim. He was not just my father here, he was Dauda, a boy who grew up with the rhythm of the island in his blood. We spent our days walking together. He shared stories of his childhood, painting vivid pictures with his words. He spoke of fishing with his brothers and climbing coconut trees. He talked about the elders who taught him the ways of the community. I listened, absorbing every detail. These stories were my inheritance. They were threads connecting me to generations I had never met. I saw the island through his eyes, not just as a place, but as a living character in our family's history. It was a history of joy and hardship, of love and loss, all woven into the fabric of this small piece of land. I watched him interact with our family. He was a brother, a nephew, a cousin. He slipped back into old roles with a natural grace. He helped mend a fishing net with an uncle. He sat with the old women, listening to their gossip and wisdom. I saw a side of him that the city had hidden away. This was the man he was before life had pulled him away. Seeing him so at peace, so completely himself, deepened my respect for him. It also made me wonder about the parts of myself that were shaped by this place, this culture, this family I was only now truly meeting. In the evenings we would sit outside as the sun set. The sky would turn brilliant shades of orange and purple. The air would fill with the sound of crickets and the distant murmur of the sea. My father and I did not always need to talk. Sometimes we just sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear one by one. In those quiet moments I felt a connection to him that was deeper than words. It was a bond forged not just by blood but by this shared experience. We were two generations sitting on the same land, under the same sky, breathing the same air. I felt closer to him than ever before. The reason for our trip was a sad one. We were there for the burial of my father's sister, my aunt. The island's usual peace was touched by a gentle sorrow. The air of celebration that greeted us had shifted into one of quiet respect and mourning. It was not a loud wailing grief. It was a deep, communal sadness. Family and friends gathered to honor a life that had been lived among them. They came to support one another, to share the burden of loss. The entire island felt like one large family, united in their farewell. It was my first time attending a traditional burial like this. The ceremony was simple and profound. There were no grand displays. There were prayers, spoken in a language that felt ancient and sacred. There were songs, their melodies rising and falling like the tide. People shared memories of my aunt. They spoke of her kindness, her laughter, her strength. Each story was a small stone, building a monument of her life in our hearts. I did not know her well, but through their words, I felt I came to understand her spirit. I saw how much she was loved, how deeply her absence would be felt. It was a powerful reminder that a life is measured by the love it leaves behind. My father stood tall, but I could see the pain in his eyes. He had lost his sister. He was saying goodbye to a part of his own history. I stood beside him, a silent presence offering what little comfort I could. As they lowered her body into the earth, I thought about the cycle of life. We come from the earth, and to the earth, we return. Here on Yark Island, that connection felt so real, so tangible. She was being laid to rest in the land that had nourished her, the land where her ancestors were also buried. There was a sense of peace in that, a feeling of coming home for the final time. After the burial, life on the island did not stop. It continued, gently and resiliently. People gathered to share food and stories. They comforted my father and our family. This was our way. Grief was not a private burden to be carried alone. It was a communal experience shared and lightened by the hands of many. I watched as the community wrapped its arms around my family. In their actions, I saw a profound cultural truth. We are stronger together. The loss was real, but so was the love that held everyone up. The burial was an end, but it was also an affirmation of the enduring strength of family and community. Leaving Yark Island was harder than arriving. The short time I spent there had changed something inside me. The island was no longer just a place in my father's stories. It was now a part of my own story. It was the taste of fresh fish and the feeling of soft sand. It was the sound of my father's laughter and the sight of a sky full of stars. As the canoe pulled away from the shore, I looked back at the figures of my family waving goodbye. They were not strangers anymore. They were my people. I carried their faces and their warmth with me, a precious cargo in my heart. The journey back to Monrovia felt different. The city's noise seemed louder, its pace faster. I saw it with new eyes. I had come from a place where time moved with the sun and the tides, where life was intertwined with nature and community. The contrast was stark. I understood now why my father always spoke of Yark Island with such longing. It was not just nostalgia. It was a yearning for a simpler, more connected way of life. I realized I now carried that same yearning within me. The island had planted a seed of peace in my soul, and I knew I would need to nurture it. This trip taught me so much about my culture. I saw the importance of community. I witnessed how Liberian traditions provide strength and comfort in times of both joy and sorrow. The burial was not just a sad event, it was a beautiful expression of shared humanity. It showed me that our rituals are not empty gestures. They are the threads that weave us together, that remind us we belong to something larger than ourselves. I felt a new sense of pride in my heritage, a deeper understanding of the values that have shaped my family for generations. The memories of Yark Island will stay with me forever. They are echoes in my heart, reminding me of who I am and where I come from. The trip was more than just a visit, it was a pilgrimage. It was a journey to the source. It strengthened my bond with my father and connected me to my roots in a way I never expected. I know I will return to the island again. I need to, because a part of my spirit will always be there on that small strip of land where the river meets the sea, where I found a deeper piece of myself. The island called me home and I had answered.